How do you find communicating with policymakers? Because a lot of this technology is new and it's evolving. And as you said, it can be quite broad in terms of the area that you can map. How do you communicate to policymakers and help them to understand the urgency and what needs to happen in their regions?
Yeah, very good question. So our strategy at the moment is to work with managers. So the intermediate level, we call it intermediate users. Instruct them, but not only work with them, more than instructing, it's an improper word. Working with them, they know the problems, they're very clear, and they give us continuously challenges. We try to find solutions, we put them in the network, and then we hope that they will scale up. That's one way. At the same time, we do in parallel to this, we take UN as a site where to show what the scientific community is proposing to do. And I have to say, with respect to, given my age, I had many contacts in the UN, and so I think that they're starting to be both the scientists and the policymakers a bit more careful in listening. So it is the practice, you have to start at the beginning, they look at you, say, oh, the scientist, okay. Yeah, so, but then when you start to treat the real problems, then it's, it's convincing. So 2 levels. The very important one is the intermediate user, the coastal managers, the people that every day have to deal with an issue and a system, or have the responsibility of giving an early warning. Yeah. That's very important, to try to solve their problems with them. And then at the same time, and they will scale up clearly because they are driven by the policymakers. But on the other hand, we also need the UN.
Yes, fantastic work. Yes, okay, thank you. If you just pop your hand up there, something might. Sorry, unless Caroline, sorry, have you already got someone at the back? Sorry, apologies, we'll come to you after, if that's okay, excuse me.
Yeah, so you just told us there that we're going to have 25 millimeters to a meter of sea level rise by 2100. So in anybody's book, you go to the Oregon Survey, you ask them for a map, and you find out what contour level at 1 meter is, and you find out what area below in the land model, what areas below sea level that might be affected. And you then know a percentage of how much terrain you have in your territory that is gone. So could you tell me how much area of Europe is going to go by 2100? What percentage? Is it 0%, 1%, 5%? And if it isn't available, why isn't it?
Yeah, very good question. I don't know the number. And it is the reason that I said that we don't trust the projection to be accurate enough to carry that estimation in order to be sensible a number. So, sometimes in science, instead of giving a number that is so uncertain, 100% uncertain, you need to find out how to ameliorate. So for that part, I think this is the case. So finding out how much land we are going to lose to this sea level rise means defining the sea level much accurately, very much in a much more accurate way offshore, so that we can carry the sea level onshore. So, and offshore, we still don't have that in the projections. We have it in the reconstruction for the satellite. So, unfortunately, I don't have that number. I would love, maybe in 5 years, when we meet again, somebody will come at my place to tell you the adventure here. We will have that number. People are aware we need that number. Thank you.
Fantastic. We have another one just over here with Caroline. Sorry, in the middle. Apologies. Sorry.
Zoe, thanks very much. And Professor Iris Moeller here. I'm coastal geomorphologist at Trinity College. Really interesting presentation. Thank you so much for raising awareness in that space here, and also for getting, informing us on that particular initiative there on the UN Ocean Decade. As a coastal geomorphologist, I'm very sort of aware of that gap between the global ocean and the data that's available in the ocean side of things, and the importance of us to get the translation right from the ocean to the coast, where the people are, the ecosystems that we are concerned about, and it came across in your surveys there as well, and the assets that we're trying to protect. And it's in that space, in that coastal transition space, where I think we need to pay particular attention, because ecosystems and coastal landforms are very dynamic in that space. And this is, I think, also one of the problems with the sea level rise projections purely based on contours. We cannot project sea level purely based on contours, because every extreme event, every storm, every tide, in fact, moves material where it is movable and changes the way our coastline looks, or what's underwater looks, and we can't often see that. So I was kind of interested in hearing whether you or the UN in this ocean decade is planning any particular initiatives and also assistance maybe to governments to improve the lack of knowledge in what we call in coastal geomorphology the white ribbon. Because often between low and high water, for example, we have very, very little data on how the coast changes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question, because clearly I totally agree, and it's similar to what we discussed many, many times about the fact that especially for geomorphology and sediment availability, we have no mass balance at our coast. Europe has no mass balance. So it means it doesn't know how many sediments arrive through their rivers and how much wind goes distributed. This is so it's like basic information. So yeah, so how do we UN decade? That's a very important question. And I would say that we need to do more. So now, for example, I work at Intergovernmental Oceanography Commission of UNESCO. This is where we are seated as UN group. And there we meet once a year. And we have to see everything. That's not, So the decade is a bottom-up. This is a very special decade because of climate change. So people have started to get projects from the bottom-up level, and they bring it all the way to the UN level. So, this is such an important topic. How do you relate to the policymakers, and how you can activate a feedback or, this discussion? It really deserves a program and a project. So I personally, think it should be worth to try. We have a group in South Africa that now tries to do this. It's called Integrated Coastal Zone Management, and now it is Sustainable Ocean Planning. So many, but we can do more and find out how to have this permanent feedback. It is time now. So please take action, get in touch. I'll put you in touch with the people I know. And it's very, very needed. Time to take that action. Thank you.
Fantastic. Over here.
How's it going? So you said that there's this two-prong approach being taken, one that goes in at the UN level and goes down, and one that goes in at coastal manager level and goes up. And you said that you get quite a lot of buy-in from coastal managers because this is very relevant to their work. Is there a plan in place at GOS level to make sure that once the decade ends and you step away, that momentum is kept? It's very easy for people in mid-level management roles to have a focus on their day job. It's very difficult to take on a +1.
Yeah.
And how do you expect to maintain, I'm going to say, political momentum, for want of a better phrase, in the face of institutional inertia?
Well, this is a 1 billion question. I think that the UN decade has been such a change of view, because we have 45 programs, 300 projects, and it is a vastity of things that people did not even imagine. So then at the UNESCO IOC level, the Intergovernmental Oceanography Commission, that is our UN group, they're thinking what to do. They're thinking what to do, because this was unprecedented. They cannot think of letting these people out without exactly what you're saying. So what is the next step for the government? Where do they go to get the next information? And so there are different possibilities. As you know, probably there is a world ocean assessment that is being done already from many years, which, however, is not completely disconnected from this. And this is a UN, not the IOC. So now this is typical. So the first thing that we are trying to do is to have IOC change, become more of a UN organization instead of UNESCO. UNESCO is also a UN organization, but it's different. Okay, so we're going to lose something in doing this. And so in this, and use some of the already needed information that the policymaker have asked us, the World Ocean Assessment. Okay, so we're building, hopefully, this is not the solution of the problem, but what at least I can tell you that now people are very aware. They have a lot of awareness that people cannot wait forever to get up to a level in which there is a persistent support for the coastal managers to improve and go ahead. So it's a word of hope, the only thing I can say at this point. But we need all of you, because if you work in the field, we need to have the voice coming. And this is the great part of the UN decade, that people from the real field come up and they say, we would like to test this hypothesis, see this, how to do this. And so we need definitely EPA, from Irish EPA, and all the others maybe to come together. Maybe not. Why not the EPAs?
Just fun. The front cow. Oh, sorry, one at the back. Apologies, and then we'll come to yourself, Safe.
Nadia, thank you very much for that brilliant presentation today. I have sort of two questions. One might take a while to get to, but and one's a bit more quicker and simpler. The first one is, you showed there the two different approaches. One is that very rigid, conservative, old school engineering approach, and then a more flexible, maybe nature-based solution, or a combination of engineering and nature-based solution. It's just interesting that you also mentioned that Ireland have been quite supportive or behind the SLR extra research ahead of what EU was asking for. And sometimes, and you talked about having this bring the middle managers on board, but sometimes there's an idiosyncrasy or a dysfunctionality in what's happening at both national and even lower levels in government. We have a project going at the moment in Ireland called ECRIP, East Coast Rail Infrastructure Protection Project, because we have a low-lying east coast. Our rail line is hugging that coastline, and obviously there's coastal erosion. There was a number of solutions available for that, but in the end, they opted for the old school, very rigid rock armor approach, even though there was a perfectly other option viable, which was less impactful,
Yeah.
and they chose not to do that. And it's so at one level you're saying Ireland is really supportive of SLR research, and yet we're still falling back to old school solutions. So that's one thing, and your thoughts on that. But actually, when you showed there the seagrass meadows, I happen to work with some groups in a small way, supporting them in their their efforts to try and bring back seagrass beds in Ireland. But then again, that's a solution that can help with the impacts of sea level rise and changing climate, but also will address biodiversity loss, will do carbon sequestration. So looking for solutions with multiple benefits all the time is really what we should be looking for, whereas rock armor doesn't really do that. So that's one question. The other question I have is, you mentioned your last mile Global Connect project there. There are some projects going in Ireland at EU level, the CCLL, Coastal City Living Labs, and then the SCORE project. I don't know if you've come across those, because it seems they're doing a little bit of similar work to what you're trying to do with the last mile. I'm just wondering if those projects talking to each other.
Well, we hope to come together. So please, I don't know the second project that you're talking about, or maybe I haven't understood exactly which one it is. Is it an Irish project? EU. Okay. I would love.
Mainly driven from Italy.
From?
I think it's mainly driven from one of the universities in Italy, but it's European
Okay.
wide.
So I would love to know more. So definitely. Okay. So about nature-based solutions, we have a big push now in Europe for nature-based solutions. First, let me say, engineers are very good, right? So, and they also have a very large business sector around them. For nature-based solution, we have much less business sector around. So, for example, I know 2 or 3 companies in Europe that do restoration of seagrass in order for the plants to grow enough before they are devastated by the waves coming or so. And but not many. So we need to have a risk-prone investment in companies that will carry this into the maturity level that we need. Because I can show this for seagrass, and I can tell you in Europe is everybody, it's the right word if you want to get funding and if you do it. But we need the substantial support for new companies to experience what it means to plant these plants, to see how they grow. For example, we don't know the critical stress, typically, for the plant that the plant needs to care about, or our model need to care about in order to preserve them before they, they're broken by the waves. We need to know if they can resist and they can reproduce even after they are broken. I mean, we need a lot of experiments, and also we need to have companies working with us to do this, because they have to implement it at the end. So my feeling for the nature-based solutions is that we are in the right system. We have a lot of people are listening, but the practical implementation is very difficult because there are no companies to do this. So yeah, that's what I think. Sorry, maybe it's not exhaustive. It's one problem.
Yeah, thank you. Would you agree that climate change is the main factor in sea rise? When you heat water, it expands.
Yes.
Yeah. When you burn fossil fuels, you're creating carbon dioxide and what's the other one? Doesn't matter now. You're creating the greenhouse gases which heat the land, the crops. If you get a dry year, you get a drought and the crops won't grow. So they're not taking in any carbon dioxide.
No.
So the biggest thing is to stop the use of fossil fuels in the future. You never mentioned sand dunes, which are formed by sand dune grass. I think it's in England, they're actually planting this grass on the sand dunes to repair the damage done by people walking over the sand dunes. The sand dunes should be fenced off and no animals or people allowed. I also believe that the place of grasses in the reduction in carbon dioxide are way underestimated.
Yes.
There doesn't seem to be any work done on that. You know?
No, there is.
And you're talking about intensive farming. Like the more grass can be grown, the more carbon dioxide is absorbed by that grass, right?
Yeah.
And the more animals we have, the more carbon dioxide is stored in the animals. And then when we eat them, it's stored in us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the wild animals that were on the hills all over Europe and in California, they're all gone. And we have these wildfires every year because the undergrowth isn't being grazed off anymore.
Yeah.
You'd agree with all that, you do?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I know.
Surely that's the most important thing to get right for a start.
Yeah.
Thanks
We
very
need. Yeah. No. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for this question. So it is for sure that we need to decrease the carbon dioxide input. There is no doubt from the atmosphere. The ocean is the biggest absorber of the effects of that greenhouse gas. I wasn't sure to present, but if you see the growth of the warming of the ocean is amazing. How the ocean warms due to a warmer atmosphere and exchange with the atmosphere. So, and that expands and is part of the sea level rise. So sea level rise is glacier melting and warming. These are the two things. 60% and 30%. The rest is 10%. So for the global, so now then the single, but so I agree with that. It's also another, but it is written in the literature. The point is that we need to bring it to a practical experiment. We need to show, we need to plant the seagrass, as it was said, show that there is much more biodiversity, that mariculture and aquaculture works much better. We need to show that we can measure also how much carbon that absorb and put it in the national quota. I mean, we can do a lot of things. I mean, there is no, the point is I was making is with respect to this topic is a bit small, but is the one that I can do. And it is that we should have systems that will measure the impact of having these systems restored and put in place. And so, for example, I want to get a station that will measure constantly the PCO2 in the water and in the atmosphere and measure with and without seagrass, what happens? Because people have not done that experiment. So this is the time to do it. I feel there's a lot of good feeling for nature-based solutions. So we need to go in that direction. Yeah, totally agree. Thank you.
Just one gentleman at the back here.
Hello, thank you. I'd like to tease out a little bit more about the long-term trends in the rate at which sea level has been rising. I understand it's been rising for many, many hundreds of years, and that there apparently has been an acceleration in recent times. But I noticed that there's a lot of reliance on satellite measurements to define everything that has occurred in the recent timescale. I mean, for example, in your graph there, I noticed if you'd gone back to 1993 rather than 99, there seemed to be a steeper slope, and it seemed to go down. I suppose my fundamental question is the accuracy with which data from satellites can be depended upon is, it seems to me you can calibrate. If you've got land nearby, you can have a reference point, but in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, there are no reference points. Presumably the satellites are tens of kilometers above the sea, and you're trying to measure within a few millimeters. How trustworthy are the satellite measurements? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for this question. Hopefully I can answer this question. So we are now at the 7th generation of altimetry, which continuously has refined the way to calculate corrections, because you need to correct for the atmosphere. So that's a big problem. So how to do the correction? The water vapor interferes with the radar beam. So you get an interference there, and you have to correct. So in the end, we have actually people thinking, we have 7 satellites now measuring altimeter, measuring sea level. So people are, with different methods, people have found also how to combine them to get the best. So we're reaching a point in which I would say the error is 2 centimeters along the track. So 2 centimeters along the track. Until 15, 20 years ago, when we had only, let's say, Topex Poseidon, some other satellite, the accuracy is 5 centimeters, which is not enough, because, the open ocean, the ocean is not 1 meter higher than around the surrounding, is 20 centimeters. If you have already 5 centimeter error, 20 centimeter change is a 25% error, more or less. No, I think now we can believe. There are different techniques that are still being devised to get the best estimate. And the best estimate is the new frontier now, is to get, because along the track is very precise, along the track. And the track takes no time, few seconds to cross the North Atlantic, one track. The satellite is 800 kilometers high. It's a polar orbiting satellite. So what I think is most important is to get this, what we call the merging of where there is no satellite with a model that is in agreement with the data. So we call it data assimilation. We call it reanalysis. So these reconstructions are becoming more and more powerful now. And there is also a big trend, because of the amount of data that we have now, 7 satellites measuring the same thing, not in the same place, but the same thing nearby. There is for machine learning. So we are really looking forward to see this latest development. And I think we are all right there. Unfortunately, as you were pointing out, we have only 40 years. So that we cannot change, but we have to maintain the monitoring. Yeah, we know that. And it's a big cost for society. It's a big cost. So we need to work to make it really good. That's the work of many, many people around. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
We just have one. There's two ladies here, so we might take this lady here in the white and then the lady in the black after, and then we'll see how we are for time after those two.
Again, thank you very much for the presentation. My question goes back to exactly what you brought up, the risk to cities of all of this and the insurance industry. Are the insurance industry not interested in your work? And surely that's a business that should be looking at what you're doing. And I think particularly about the seagrass examples, and when there are nature-based solutions, surely that the banking and insurance industry should be very willing to work with you, because when you consider the cost of the destruction in these cities from flooding, they're the ones that foot the bill increasingly.
So let me get exactly, you were asking how come that the companies are not coming,
Yeah,
right?
particularly the
not
insurance and banking.
Involved enough.
Financing.
Oh, yeah. Well, companies financing something that is a public good, like the beach and the coast, is difficult, right? There's none of them that do that. But what I think is that we should have our government to help high-risk companies, high-risk activities, commercial activities, to start. I'm used a little bit about, I'm a little bit American in this, so I never see such funding in Europe as we have for companies in US. Now, until now I'm not sure anymore, but in any case, when you have such a high risk, it's difficult for a company to undertake that path. So that's one point which I have. But the other part is that you have to be extremely innovative in the business model. Let me tell you the story that is successful. So, because I like it to show a successful story. The successful story is about this Oceanography company that reached me without, I didn't know about them. And they told me, oh, we would like to offer our data to you to show how important is our data. I said, oh, you want to offer? You're a company. I mean, strange that you offer data for free and so on. So they got a wonderful business model. And so what they do is they instrument for free the boats, okay? The leisure boats. And then they get their data sent to their system, and they merge this data with the atmospheric forecast, and they get a much more precise wind and wave field, because they get the data, local data. They can actually, so they constructed practically all the digital part, and they get the business out of the digital part of the service that they do for the boats, for safer navigation. Fantastic. Because in fact, up to now, we were trying to have the private buy the instrumentation, and then we're receiving the data, but without much control. Now, this is the different business model in which you have to understand that the information that you get out of the measurements of a boat, it is really the one that can give you the money out of your hardware. is not anymore hardware. It's strange to say this is not hardware, the one that gives you the money for this part, but it is the service out of the digital representation of your data. So just I wanted to say that we don't have too many of these companies, even in China. So somehow it is a difficult world, the marine and the coastal. It's a difficult world for companies to come. So that's why I think there's nothing like an investment in startups by the government for this particular field. I'm in another group in US. They're also in US where they have so much more money. They think in the same way. They also are going to ask to have specific support for companies doing this. I mean, without talking about seagrass, which is really not existing even in US. I think the only company I know is this Spanish company that does seagrass restoration. They're very good. But how can it be one company? This is a big
world.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have time.
Thank you for the question. Sorry, I don't know if I
No,
answered properly.
And just one last question at the front, if that's okay.
Hello.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Kiran, and my grandparents and my uncle actually stay in rural coastal region in India. Sorry, I'm just nervous.
Yeah.
So this is actually close to heart because they were twice directly impacted by the floods, as you say, temporarily displaced. So with that, actually, with the floods that comes is destruction of your property as well as destruction of your biodiversity. Like you see lots of displaced creatures and everything. How does that sit in your assessment? And especially the mangroves as well. Growing up, I have seen rapid destruction. Like I have seen them, the rapid destruction of mangroves, where it was like really beautiful creature, like especially diverse and rich in biodiversity, all types of animals, and then just keep on decreasing. So how does that, because I haven't heard the word mangrove, and
Yeah.
I think
Sorry about that. I mentioned all the seagrass. I should have mentioned the mangroves. We are
Sorry about
working
that.
with the mangrove.
no, I did not mean to accuse you of something. No, it's just one of the of course I'm talking about the rural region where I come from. So mangroves play really important kind of like this, and it's just the rapid destruction of it is not captured anywhere. I know now they have started putting in as a protected region, but still it is decreasing, and we all know how important mangroves is for coastal region. So how is that being captured or tracked or kind of like in this report anywhere? Thank you.
Thank you. Mangroves, are at the center of our attention. We have a project in Ghana. They also have completely destroyed the mangroves that were defending their coast. So, in your regions, in some part of Africa, and in Florida, for example, they destroyed the mangroves, and they now are planting them again. So Florida is devastated by the loss of mangroves. So it's not only in India or in Ghana. Yeah, so all these coastal ecosystems, they were there for a reason. And we just have to find a public-private way to restore them. This is what we were discussing up to now. And there is not at present a general model. So we are working in Bangladesh so if you are from that area, the Indian area of the mangrove forest, which is beautiful, where there are tigers. I love tigers. Yeah, this, it's amazing. It's their natural environment. This is amazing. They show me movies of tigers in the middle of the mangrove forest. I mean, it's like a dream. So I love cats, so that's why. They're particularly big, so I mean, a bit dangerous, but beautiful. And so mangroves. Yeah, mangroves are, can be restored like seagrass. We just have to continue to iterate the importance and have models that can show. The only thing I can tell you, what I can do, which I'm doing, is now I have a new PhD student. He's going to do the mangroves. So he's going to put in our model the mangroves and show how different it is to have the mangrove or not to have the mangrove for the different issues connected to even to fisheries and so on. So yeah, it is, and then going around the world, I learned that there are these brown algae. The brown algae, I didn't know before. I'm not a biologist, so I had to stay close to biologists to learn. But so I went and I understood that the eastern upwelling boundary regions of the Pacific, from California to Chile, are dominated by another plant that defends the coast that is called brown algae. They are big trees, also South Africa. Big, I mean, they are several tens of meters long. They grow and then they detach and they regrow, and it's a big cycle. And we're losing them. Still don't know why. They are in the water, they stay in 20-meter water, perfect for waves. They dump the waves before they arrive to the coast. They're losing them. So now we're putting together Chile and North California, which has the same problem. They're losing the brown algae. I don't know if you have ever seen them. They're beautiful. They're like big trees full of leaves and nice. So they arrive on the coast and they regrow. But at a certain point, they don't grow anymore. There's no resilience. Somehow we touched a point in which they are not able to grow. That part we don't know. We don't know why they don't grow, the brown algae. But mangroves, yes, we need to plant them, and there is no way, there's no other possibility.
Tigers and all.
Eh?
Tigers and all.
Exactly. The tigers is, defending tigers. We need to defend the big animals, right? They're the top predators. So that's one other way. I normally sell my mangrove work by saying I will save the tigers. And so
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. So I think it's probably all we have time for this evening. And just to let you all know, you will receive a survey in your email. We greatly appreciate if you could fill it in because it helps us to decide the direction for future talks. So that just leaves me to say a massive thank you for an inspirational evening to Professor Nadia Pinardi. So thank you so much, and maybe a big round of
thank you
applause.
for your question.